I caught my wife cheating in our bathroom and punched her lover. At court, my own son looked at me and said, "Dad deserved what happened to him." What I did next destroyed our family forever. That moment in the courthouse when my 15-year-old son, Marcus, testified against me was devastating, but it also crystallized something important. This wasn't just about a marriage falling apart, or even about the assault charges I was facing. This was about protecting my financial future and making sure everyone who betrayed me faced real consequences for their choices. Let me explain how I got to that courtroom and what happened afterward, because the real story isn't about throwing one punch in a moment of rage. It's about the methodical campaign I launched to systematically dismantle the lives of everyone who thought they could destroy mine and walk away unscathed. My name is David Thompson. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. The confrontation in our master bathroom happened on a Tuesday morning in March 2023. I'd returned early from a consulting trip to Denver, walking into my own house at a.m. to find my wife, Sarah, pressed against our marble vanity with Dr. Kevin Morrison, my son's pediatrician. The rage was instantaneous and overwhelming. I punched Morrison twice in the face before Sarah's screaming brought me back to reality. What made it worse was learning this had been going on for 8 months, right under my nose, in my own home while I was traveling for work. Morrison had been using house calls for Marcus as cover for their affair, billing our insurance company for fake medical visits while having relations with my wife in our bedroom. The betrayal was complete and calculated. But here's what nobody expected, including Sarah and Morrison. I'm a forensic accountant by trade, specializing in investigating financial fraud for major corporations. My annual income is $185,000, and I own a consulting firm with 3 employees that generates an additional $340,000 annually. Pattern recognition and strategic planning are literally what I do for a living. Within 4 hours of punching Morrison, I'd already started building my counterattack. While Sarah was at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital, with Morrison getting his broken nose treated, I was back at our house photographing everything. I was downloading bank statements and creating a comprehensive timeline of their affair using credit card receipts, phone records, and Morrison's suspicious medical billing patterns. See, Sarah thought she was being clever, but she was leaving digital footprints everywhere. Restaurant charges at places she'd never mentioned visiting. Hotel rooms booked on days she claimed to be visiting her sister in Boulder. 23 separate charges at Victoria's Secret over 6 months when she'd never bothered with lingerie during our marriage. I documented every transaction with timestamps and cross-referenced them with Morrison's work schedule that I obtained from his clinic's website. The assault charges Morrison filed against me were serious, but they were also my opportunity. While everyone focused on the criminal case, I was quietly preparing to destroy both of their lives systematically. I hired Marcus Chen, a private investigator who specializes in medical professional misconduct cases, for $8,500. Best money I ever spent. Chen's investigation revealed that Morrison wasn't just cheating with my wife. He'd been conducting affairs with at least 4 other patients' mothers over the past 2 years, using his position as a pediatrician to gain access to vulnerable families. More importantly, he'd been billing fraudulent house calls to insurance companies, generating approximately $67,000 in fake revenue, while using these visits to conduct his affairs. I also hired Sarah Kellerman, one of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in Colorado, for a $15,000 retainer. Kellerman reviewed our financial situation immediately. Our house in Highlands Ranch was worth $750,000 to $50,000, fully paid off. We had $240,000 in joint savings, $680,000 in retirement accounts, and I owned 100% of my consulting business, valued at approximately $1.2 million. Total marital assets worth $2.87 million. But what Sarah didn't know was that I'd been documenting her suspicious behavior for 3 months before the bathroom incident. I'd suspected something was wrong when her spending patterns changed dramatically in December 2022. She'd purchased a new iPhone, upgraded her wardrobe, started working out obsessively, and began traveling to visit her sister twice monthly. Classic affair behavior that I recognized from the fraud cases I investigate. So, by the time I punched Morrison, I'd already transferred $95,000 of my business income to a separate account, legally protecting it as premarital business assets. I'd also documented $34,000 in marital funds Sarah had spent on her affair, including hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for Morrison. Under Colorado law, dissipation of marital assets during an affair affects property division calculations. The criminal trial for assault was scheduled for June 15, 2023, 4 months after the incident. Marcus was called to testify because he'd been home that day, supposedly sick with a stomach bug, and had witnessed the confrontation from the hallway outside our bedroom. What he'd actually witnessed was Morrison scrambling to get dressed while my wife begged me not to hurt him. But Marcus had been manipulated by Sarah and Morrison for months. Morrison had been buying my son expensive gifts, taking him to Colorado Rockies games, and positioning himself as the cool adult who understood him better than his angry father. Sarah had convinced Marcus that I was emotionally abusive and that she and Morrison deserved happiness together. So, when Marcus testified that I was violent and controlling and that Dad deserved what happened to him, it was devastating personally, but strategically irrelevant. I took the assault conviction and 30 days in Jefferson County Jail because it was a minor cost compared to what I was planning to do to both of them. While serving my 30 days in July 2023, Chen finished his investigation, and Kellerman filed motions that would change everything. Chen had documented Morrison's pattern of insurance fraud, professional misconduct, and abuse of his position. He'd also uncovered that Morrison was already married to Dr. Jennifer Morrison, a radiologist at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital, and they had 2 children together, ages 8 and 12. More importantly, Chen discovered that Morrison had been prescribing unnecessary medications to several of my son's friends whose mothers he was pursuing, creating medical records to justify additional appointments and house calls. This wasn't just adultery, it was criminal medical fraud and potential child endangerment. The day I was released from jail on August 3, 2023, Kellerman filed our divorce petition, along with a formal complaint to the Colorado Medical Board against Morrison. We also submitted Chen's complete investigation to the Denver District Attorney's Office, the Colorado Department of Insurance Fraud Division, and Morrison's medical malpractice insurance company. The response was swift and devastating. The medical board suspended Morrison's license pending investigation within 2 weeks. His practice, which generated approximately $280,000 annually, was immediately shut down. The insurance fraud investigation froze his business accounts, containing an estimated $85,000. His malpractice insurance was canceled, making him unemployable at any medical facility. But I wasn't finished. Chen had also provided Morrison's wife Jennifer with a complete copy of our investigation, including photographs of Morrison and Sarah together at the Marriott downtown Denver, hotel receipts, and evidence of his multiple affairs with other patients' mothers. Jennifer filed for divorce immediately and secured an emergency custody order removing Morrison from their family home in Cherry Hills Village. The financial impact on Morrison was catastrophic. Colorado is an equitable distribution state, and Jennifer's attorney argued successfully that Morrison's misconduct and criminal behavior warranted an unequal division of assets. Jennifer received their $520,000 house, Morrison's entire $340,000 retirement account, and was awarded $4,200 monthly in spousal support for 8 years. Morrison went from earning $280,000 annually to owing $50,400 per year in support, while being unemployable in his profession. Meanwhile, Sarah was discovering that her affair partner was now broke, unemployed, and facing potential criminal charges. She tried to maintain their relationship, but Morrison was living in a studio apartment in Aurora and working at a medical supply warehouse for $15 per hour. The man she'd destroyed our marriage for had become a complete liability. The divorce proceedings were equally devastating for Sarah. Kellerman had documented every dollar Sarah spent on her affair, every lie she told about her whereabouts, and every conversation she had with Marcus, attempting to manipulate him against me. Colorado courts don't look favorably on parents who involve children in their affairs or attempt to alienate them from the other parent. Judge Patricia Williams reviewed our case over 6 hours of testimony on September 22, 2023, 8 months after the bathroom incident. The financial breakdown was surgical in its precision. I retained the house, 80% of retirement accounts, $544,000, my business, and was awarded primary custody of Marcus, despite his testimony against me. Sarah received 20% of retirement funds, $136,000, was ordered to pay me $1,800 monthly in child support based on our income disparity, and was granted supervised visitation with Marcus only. The judge ruled that Sarah's systematic manipulation of the minor child and dissipation of marital assets through adulterous conduct warranted the unequal division, but the real satisfaction came from watching the long-term consequences unfold. Morrison's criminal trial for insurance fraud began in November 2023. He was convicted on 14 counts of fraud and sentenced to 18 months in federal prison plus restitution of $67,000. His medical license was permanently revoked, making him unemployable in healthcare forever. Sarah's attempts to rebuild her life failed systematically. She had been working as a nurse practitioner at a family clinic in Littleton, earning $87,000 annually. But when her affair with Morrison became public through the medical board proceedings and criminal trial, her professional reputation was destroyed. The clinic fired her in October 2023 to avoid association with the scandal, and other medical facilities refused to hire her due to the ethical concerns. She eventually found work at an urgent care clinic in Commerce City for $52,000 annually, barely enough to cover her rent and the child support she owed me. Meanwhile, Marcus was slowly realizing how thoroughly he'd been manipulated by both Sarah and Morrison. The turning point came in December 2023, when Marcus learned about Morrison's other affairs and the medical fraud charges through news coverage of the trial. Chen had documented Morrison's pattern of grooming families, using children as entry points to pursue their mothers. Marcus realized he'd been used as a tool in Morrison's predatory behavior, and that realization devastated him. 6 months after testifying against me, Marcus asked to move in with me full-time in January 2024. He'd been living with Sarah in her cramped apartment in Commerce City, watching her struggle financially and emotionally as her relationship with Morrison completely collapsed. He started therapy with Dr. Rebecca Martinez to process how he'd been manipulated and gradually built a better relationship with me. The financial scorecard 18 months after the bathroom incident tells the complete story. My net worth increased to $3.2 million through strategic business investments and the favorable divorce settlement. Morrison went from $280,000 annually to federal prison and permanent unemployability. Sarah went from $87,000 annually to $52,000, while paying me $1,800 monthly in support. But the most satisfying consequence was seeing Morrison's complete social and professional destruction. His medical career was over, his marriage destroyed, his children wanted nothing to do with him, and he faced years of financial obligations to Jennifer while earning warehouse wages. The man who thought he could help destroy my family lost everything. Morrison was released from federal prison in May 2024, but couldn't find stable employment due to his criminal record and revoked medical license. He worked various manual labor jobs before developing a drinking problem that cost him even those opportunities. By September 2024, he was homeless and had been arrested twice for public intoxication in downtown Denver. Last month, Sarah called me asking if I'd consider reducing her child support obligations because she was struggling financially. Morrison had been released from prison, but was working construction for $18 per hour and couldn't contribute anything to Marcus's expenses. She was behind on rent and could barely afford groceries. I reminded her that, according to our divorce agreement, support calculations were based on income capacity, not current earnings. If she wanted a modification, she'd need to petition the court and demonstrate a permanent change in circumstances. Given that her reduced income was a direct result of her documented misconduct, I doubted any judge would be sympathetic. Maybe you should have thought about Marcus's future before you decided to destroy our family, I told her, and hung up. The lesson here is simple. Emotional reactions feel satisfying in the moment, but strategic responses create lasting consequences. Everyone expected me to crumble after Marcus's testimony, to give up and accept whatever scraps they offered. Instead, I documented everything, consulted professionals, and built a systematic campaign that protected my assets while ensuring every person who betrayed me faced appropriate consequences. Today, Marcus is thriving as a junior at the University of Colorado Boulder, studying business with plans to join my consulting firm after graduation. My business has grown to 7 employees and generates over $500,000 annually. Sarah is still struggling financially in her studio apartment, still paying child support she can barely afford. Morrison's life never recovered. The successful pediatrician who thought he could steal my family ended up with absolutely nothing. His medical career was permanently destroyed, his family abandoned him, and he lost everything he'd worked decades to build. Sometimes the best revenge isn't throwing punches in moments of rage. It's getting methodical, getting strategic, and ensuring that every single consequence of their choices comes back to impact their lives permanently. That bathroom confrontation lasted 2 minutes, but the systematic destruction of their future took 2 years of careful planning and execution. The man who threw that punch learned a 30-day lesson. But the man who planned everything that followed changed the trajectory of everyone's lives forever. When people show you who they really are, believe them, and then make sure they face the full consequences of their choices.